Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out RV Daydream, and it is beautiful. It's 83 degrees and dew point 68, so you know how I feel about that.
What have you been up to?
I've been riding on a daydream.
Yeah, I feel great. This warm weather is going to let me do some work. Now, my truck, I checked my fuel pressures the other day, and I noticed that when I adjust my fuel pressure, it is higher when it's on the rear tank versus the front tank, and that's because there's two different pumps. The pump that I have in the front tank is pretty good and it's done a good job. However, I noticed that it made a noise the other day, and I think it might be failing potentially. So not to take any chances, I went ahead and bought myself a Carter fuel pump that matches the rear tank. Really good. Those pumps are built much better. You can just tell when you get them. If you're around parts a lot, you can just look at things and tell that it was put together better. And the first thing that gave me the indication that it might be better is that the Carter fuel pumps have much thicker gauge wire running into the fuel pump itself versus some of these cheaper ones. So I'm going to replace that. My front tank is full on my truck though, so I got to transfer gas out of it and get it to where it's kind of low so I can manage the tank by myself. So that's what I'm going to be doing, but let me show you something we have in addition to our family. It's a brief addition. It's a little puppy dog. It's not a puppy. The dog's old. Heidi, the reason that she is off for the last couple days is because her father had some sort of hemorrhagic bleed on his brain, and he suffered a stroke. So he's at the hospital. Heidi's been off the last couple days, and she's transporting her mom back and forth and making sure that, you know, everything's taken care of. And he's got a lot of, you know, recovery that he's going to have to do. But this is their dog, Jack. And Jack is just a little tiny fiddly dog that likes to get into stuff, but he also likes to just lay out side, so he's not hard to watch at all. I just tied him up to a rope that we had laying around, and he'll be good all on his own. I've been watching him the last couple days. As far as us doing anything with going camping, that's still a go. And when I say camping, I mean that trip, a bigger trip. Everything's still a go. We still don't have any general direction that we're thinking about. And you know what? That's not 100% true. We find ourselves rounding back to the same location every time. And when I say location, I don't mean location. I just mean area, general area. The ocean. We want to get to Atlantic Ocean and just kind of somewhere. I don't know. And maybe the Gulf of Mexico. We're not sure exactly. And we don't know how we're going to get there. We were talking about driving the entire coast down and stopping along the way. Then, you know, we're trying to keep the plan unplanned. That's the plan, not to be planned. And it's kind of hard for us. So anyways, that's where we stand there. And luckily, we're still in good shape for all that. The garage is a mess, but I still can operate. I don't need very many tools to do this fuel tank. Just some simple tools. Just the only special tools I need is for the fuel disconnect and you know, extensions, sockets, that kind of thing, and I can access all that. So I'm not going to be really working in the garage too much. I can actually do the fuel tank on the ground if I need to. The grass is kind of high, and we do have rain in the forecast for tomorrow. So at some point, if I don't get this truck done, I'm going to have to break down and actually do that. I'm not real pleased about it. Now, I worked on my son's van the other day. He has to work tonight, and then he's off 3 days, and him and I are going to be breaking down and doing a lot of work on that, hopefully, weather permitting. And I'll be shooting video of that because I have another like series for his van that will eventually get posted and everything that we're doing with it, but not a daily thing. So let me go ahead and jockey these cars around and see if I can find some way to get this done. All right, so hopefully you can hear me over the sound of the engine. I got it a little bit warm so the fan would kick off. So basically, this is a good reason to have a fuel pressure gauge, which I did an install video on this on my other channel. I'll put a link up above here if you guys want to go check that out. But this is telling me what I have the fuel pressure set at. And I've made modifications to the vehicle, so I need a little bit more fuel pressure than what's stock. Well, right now it's pretty much running what's stock. Now the problem is I've got it bumped up. I have the fuel pressure bumped up from stock. It's just, this is what the fuel pump is delivering. So it looks like I'm running about 40 pounds with vacuum applied, and that fuel pressure will increase as the vacuum decreases as I accelerate and I'm under a load. So just imagine if I'm going up a hill or something like that, the fuel pressure will climb to accommodate the higher RPM and the higher load that the engine's under. The problem that I have is I need a little bit more fuel pressure than what this fuel pump is currently providing. So what I did was I adjusted the fuel pressure to jump up quite a bit. However, when I go to the rear tank, it's much more. So let me show you. I'm going to switch between the front tank and the rear tank while it's running, and you're going to see the difference in fuel pressures between the two tanks. So currently that's the front tank. So now let's switch to the rear tank. And you can see it jumps up. Front, rear, front, rear. That's a little bit higher than I want it to be on the rear tank. I want something kind of in between, but I had to make an adjustment that accommodated both fuel pumps. That is enough difference to make this engine run differently. So that's why the front fuel pump's being replaced. Let me go ahead and put it back to the front pump, to something that's comparable and matches the rear tank. And you can see, unfortunately, my front tank, as it climbs, because I just switched back to the front tank, is about 3/4 of the way full, just under 3/4. So I got to siphon some gas out and start working. Well, you guys can see the routine I got going on here. It's not like it's my first rodeo with this style of truck and changing fuel pumps and tanks that are full. So the deal is since the back tank's empty, and it's a big tank anyways, I just go ahead and start the siphoning process. I don't really like the taste of gasoline. I did that so many times when I was younger. I'm not doing that crap anymore. And once it starts flowing, I start filling up a can. When that can gets full, I switch it over to the other can and then empty the can into the tank that I wanted to. Now, one time, I think it was actually the last time on this truck when I did the front tank, Heidi and I, both tanks were full. So we had all of our gas tanks out here, all of them. And we have a bunch of little ones. And we filled them all up and it emptied the tank, but it was kind of funny. It was almost comical. I've got the generator running. I want to run that propane tank out of gas so I can go do a switch on the tank, because the tank is looking kind of rough. And I want to put them in the back of the truck and secure them. The other tank looks pretty good and it's not old. That one right there. So I'm basically wanting to get another decent tank. The tank that are on the RV are pretty full. One's full for sure, and the other one has been used very little. So that way when we go on our trip, if we need to run the generator, which I doubt, it'll allow us to run it though. You know, we never know. And plus I want to kind of load up sort of like we would if we were full timing, to get an idea of the weight and how the truck travels and everything else. But I'm not going to ride with a full tank of water back there, although I've been riding around with a full tank of water since I did my video. And since I flipped that bracket around and put those wood blocks in, somebody had mentioned something about it being bowed, and they're right. I mean, that is a sort of an issue, so I'll have to take a look at that and readdress it at a later time. You can kind of see in there what's going on. Matter of fact, I see like moisture on the bottom of that tank. I might have to take a look at that. Yeah, you can kind of see how the tank's supported in the middle where I put the support in those blocks, but the edges are drooping on either side. It's not level. That can be remedied by me putting a couple more of those organizers to the edges along with the one that's in the middle, but I'm not sure. I'm thinking maybe I might do something different, even though this will definitely hold it. I just don't really care for this. Well, you know, all I got to do is just support the corners. Just raise the corners. And as far as this water that's on the bottom, let me see if I can get you guys in here so you can see it. I was concerned. I'm like, oh no, I got a leak of some kind. I don't. It's just condensation from the tank. You can see it's level all the way across. Well, maybe you can't see, but there's a condensation line right here all the way across. So not a big deal. It's just I guess expected to happen. And the good thing, like I mentioned before, this being marine grade carpet, you can see what the water droplets do. They just kind of hang out there. They'll eventually absorb down into the carpet, but they pretty much evaporate. They don't like to go anywhere. And the carpet never stays wet. Even if I poured water in here, it just doesn't stay wet for long. So yeah, just biding my time back on another tank again here. But we're getting close, as the fuel coming out of the tank looks like it's pretty much subsided to where it's about level. I just wanted to clarify that I'm just not wasting propane. I wanted to see if the RV would get colder or it would cool faster or something like that with all this Reflectix in here, and the addition that we made by putting one of those insulated Reflectix things up in this deal here, because I felt the backside of that thing and it was hot. The sun's not as bright, but anyways, it's 67.8 degrees and we're at oh, who knows what time it is. This stupid stereo. 2:51. I started it when the clock was at 1:01. So we're just shy of 2 hours that it's been running, and the humidities went down considerably. So I'd have to say that I have mixed results here, because when we were camping, you know, it got down to 66, 64 degrees. It is 85 degrees outside though right now. So it does a good job. Back to the tank. You see I got it out. It's not a big deal. The front tank's much easier than the rear tank for a couple of reasons. Number one, that rear tank, when I convert it over and put a bigger tank in there, it requires a lot more maneuvering to get it up into place. It's a little bit bulkier. And secondly, you got to take the hitch off. You got to take the hitch off to get the tank out. Even when it was just a 19-gallon tank back there, you had to take the hitch off. So yeah, the front tank's not a big deal. It's just basically getting the gas out, disconnecting a couple of hose clamps and the filler neck, which is down there on the floor, and then just lowering, you know, disconnecting the straps, lowering it, and then disconnecting fuel lines, disconnecting the plug, and then of course the vent. So not a big deal. Now I'm going to put me a new Carter fuel pump in there. Let me see if I can show the differences on tape here. I don't know if I can. I don't know if it's going to come across because the wire gauges are really hard to see, but we'll do it anyways. They got both fuel pumps out. This is the old pump here, and I'm going to try to point out some differences. There's still gas coming out of it. I've tried to drain as much as possible, but there's always a little bit in there still. So the first thing is the way that these tabs connect up the top half to the bottom half. There's a screw and then there's a bunch of tabs, and that's how you access the actual fuel pump. Now I'm not going to get in there. There's really no reason to, but the way that it attaches on the one that I currently have in there, again, for just a plain stock vehicle like my F-150, I had this brand of fuel pump in there for 3 years and there was no issues whatsoever. Got good gas mileage, never had a problem. But it's made a little bit cheaper, and the thing is these pumps are essentially the same for the F-150 and the F-250, of course the F-350. Even though I had a small block V8 in my F-150, they basically call for the same fuel pump for the F-250 with a big block in it. What I notice is they're a little bit lighter weight, even though this still has fuel in it. Even though it still has a strainer on it, which has some fuel on it, I can tell that this new pump is just a little bit heavier than this right pump. I mean, it's barely a difference, but there's enough difference there that I can feel it. The other thing that I like is all of these date codes that Carter puts on their pumps tells me that they're actually keeping track of these pumps as far as failure reasons, like on down the road, if one of these caused a fire, for example, and they had a big recall. They have some numbers in there that's specific to them. Now, in this case, this company, they put the normal plastic manufacturing numbers on there, but there's nothing else to identify it. As far as internally, I know that there's a better system inside here for keeping the fuel pump seated on these ports right here. This is where your fuel sending unit slides into, and the part that holds it in, it is just better down at the bottom. It's a better pocket design. The main thing, though, you can tell is that these pumps get fed all of their electricity through wires. Now, the factory wires that are on the factory sending unit are pretty thick gauge. They're big. They're a big wire. You can see that the fuel pump wires are smaller than the pumps, smaller than the fuel sending wire. So basically what I'm saying is the electricity that's being sent to the pump is being sent with a decent sized wire. However, the fuel pump, apparently by design, doesn't have a big gauge of wire, so therefore the motor may not be as big as what it is from the factory. So the motor's not running as strong. And if you look at the Carter wires, you can see how much bigger they are. And that all has to do with the gauge of wire, not how much insulation's on it, it's how thick the wire is. Because if I cut this off and strip these wires, you'd be able to see that there's really not that much wire going to the fuel pump. So these Carter wires are much closer to what Ford had from the factory. I mean, they're a good size. The other thing I liked is I called Carter when I was having problems with my back tank, whenever I was trying to figure out that issue that it was going on. And their tech line's very knowledgeable. I told them I bought a Carter pump, and their pump wasn't the one causing a problem, but I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't doing something wrong, and that's when he told me that I might want to address my bracketry and secure up my pump to make sure it wasn't moving around. So, much better pump, the Carter fuel pump. I'm going to put a link down below for this. If you guys are in the market for that, I doubt it, unless you have a Ford. Definitely the Carter brand has been around a long time, and of course Carter AFB, they made their own carburetors for the aftermarket, and there's a lot of people that liked them. And I'll have to say, as far as their fuel pumps, I like them. I think this is a really nice pump, because I have it on the rear of my truck, and I think that you're going to see the difference whenever we go install this and we compare front tank to rear tank again, and the pressures that was being offered. So let me go ahead and put this all back together, and we'll pick this up in a little bit. Hopefully the rain holds off. All right, I beat the rain, got it all back installed, everything's buttoned up underneath there, and the pump's quiet. It's quieter than the last one. You can see that I have it on the front tank. I don't have very much gas in there though, and we're going to check out the fuel pressure. Voila! Let's go ahead and switch it back and forth. Ready? Front tank, back tank. Front tank, back tank. That's good. Problem is, now I gotta adjust it because it's way too high. So let me do that, but we're done here. That's it, guys. I'm all done. Now I'm going to go in and clean up just a little bit, and I got to mow the lawn because we're going to get some rain here for a couple days, and this is about the right height for it to be cut. So as always, we hope to see you out there. Bye.